Hello, and this is a Linksys Velop dual band wireless mesh router. That rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? But I'll be talking about why I bought this in just a moment. But first of all, a little bit of networking background. This is my network switch, and if you've seen any of my previous networking videos, you'll be well aware that I like Ethernet. I like wired networking, and there's a good reason for that. It's a lot more stable than wireless. Now, I've got this unwritten rule that if any device that wants to be connected to my network has an Ethernet port on it, then I will use it. Now, that's not just obvious things like computers and servers and printers, but it's less obvious things such as TVs, games consoles, set-top boxes, that kind of thing. I've got quite a lot of devices that want to be connected to the network. It's just the world we live in these days. And I'm pleased to say that everything that has an Ethernet port on it that I want to put on the network has been able to be wired in. So that's great, that's that box ticked. What that means is that those devices have the most reliable connectivity. There's nothing to interfere with them. They just go wired and they end up back here in this switch. But of course there are some devices that don't have Ethernet ports that you need to walk around with, such as phones, tablets, smartwatches, some smart home speakers, that kind of thing. So those devices do need reliable networking through your wireless network. Now, I got into terrible trouble once when I made a video on this channel that talked about replacing an ISP's router with one of these, an Airport Extreme. And I had all sorts of comments posted to that video saying, why am I saying that an Airport Extreme is better than an ISP's router? And what I should have explained in that video, and clearly didn't because of all the people venting their spleen in the comments below, was that ISP's routers might be perfectly fine. You might have an ISP supplied router from your internet service provider and it might supply wireless to your home and be perfectly adequate. Whereas for some people, me included, my ISP's router just didn't seem to be doing the job, and that's why I bought this. Now, I wasn't saying, I don't make this stuff up, I wasn't saying in the video that, oh, you must buy an Apple router. I mean, let's face it, Apple themselves don't even sell this anymore. What I was saying was that an ISP's router will have certain budgetary constraints. They will have a certain amount of money they can spend designing and manufacturing these things, whereas when somebody creates a third-party router like this, they have a budget in mind for what they want to sell it for, of course, but they're more likely to put in better quality components. They're more likely to come up with a product that kind of does what it's supposed to do, because that's their primary objective, is to sell you this stuff. Whereas an ISP is to get you using their service. The router is kind of an added extra. It's not the thing they're selling you, really. That's what I was trying to say. But the important thing about wireless, and I may mention this again in this video, is your mileage may vary. Yes, wireless can be affected by a lot of things. By the fridge in your kitchen, other wireless networks near to your premises, the thickness of the walls in your home, by the number of people in your house, big 1980s shoulder pads that you've left in your loft, by a lonesome badger walking past your window, ex-Blue Peter presenter Peter Purvis, the tears of a unicorn, Jeff Cape's Y-fronts. Where did that come from? Fat people. Christmas trees, thin people, owl and pears, average sized people, people with afros like mine, mouldy bananas. Now, some of those I possibly made up, others will be true. But the point I'm trying to make is that Wi-Fi is affected by things. That's why I like Ethernet. That's why I've taken the trouble to wire my house with those cables so I can plug stuff in. So with Wi-Fi, as we've already established, your mileage may vary. So I hope we've established that now, and I won't be getting unnecessary comments, just maybe constructive ones would be nice. So that begs the question then, why have I bought these? Well, with my AirPort, I found that the quality of the wireless was actually really good. It had solved the problems that I felt that I had with my ISP's router. However, the range wasn't as good. If I had the router, the AirPort, here in my office, then the signal at the further point of the house, say my kitchen for example, wasn't that great. If I then decided to set things up slightly differently, so for example in here I put my ISP's router back on and use the AirPort as an extender, put it into bridge mode, then I'd have great connectivity in the kitchen. I'd have mixed results here in the office because of the things we've already talked about, and in the lounge, which is in between those two rooms, I would find that my devices wouldn't know which node they should be connecting to, and you'd have these things where perhaps the wireless device, or my phone for example, was trying to hang on for grim death to a weaker signal rather than connecting on to a stronger one from another node, which, let's face it, we've all been there. So this is where this comes in, the mesh networking, because how these devices work is they work collaboratively. So you have, for example, in this pack there are 2, you can get packs of 3, and they work together as a team to decide who should be connecting into which node. And that's a really good thing because it means that you get a more reliable wireless rather than them kind of acting against each other, as you often find with extenders. This is the dual band version of the Velop router. You also get a tri-band version, and there's a very important difference because these are working together, so they use some of your bandwidth to communicate with each other. With the tri-band model, they use their own extra 5 GHz band inside the mesh routers to do that communication, to do that, or who's talking to which device chat that they do. And that could be a good thing if you've got a particularly busy network. If you've got lots of people that are using wireless, then you might want to consider a tri-band because that frees up the main 5 GHz and 2.4 GHz bands on your mesh network for your devices. Otherwise you might notice a hit in speed. You'll also find that these dual band devices are rated slightly slower, but once we get them out of the box and plug them in, we'll put that to the test. And that's what I need to do next. I need to take these out of the box, plug it in, and see whether my wireless range problem is fixed. So let's do that. Okay, we're going to do a lightning fast unboxing of these because this isn't really the very interesting part. The reason that I'm going to talk to you while I do it is to explain why I've got the dual band and not the tri-band that I was referring to in my previous clip. And the reason is that for me, as I work out how to get in the box, hold on, wait a minute, I can't concentrate. There we go. The main reason is that for me, the dual band will work just fine. That's because I've only got a small number of wireless devices. Most of my devices are Ethernet, as I've already explained. I've only got maybe half a dozen devices that want to connect wirelessly, so that's not really very much. None of them are particularly high throughput, so if these have got to communicate using some of the bandwidth, then that's absolutely fine. However, and this is an important factor that you might want to consider, these have these Ethernet ports on the back, and I'm hoping that what I can do is to plug both of these nodes in an area where I have Ethernet, and that means that they won't have to use any of the wireless capacity for their communication. They'll be able to do that over Ethernet, freeing up those dual bands for pure in-house network traffic. That's my hope. So in here we've got the 2 little mesh routers. It's worth pointing out that the tri-band ones are much taller than this, and they also have some cable management built into the bottom, whereas these ones don't. That's really the main difference, and of course the speed. So there's 2 of those in the box here. They're quite diddy in size. I'll put those next to my AirPort later so you can see the size of them. You just get one Ethernet cable with it, and I believe you only get one Ethernet cable in the 3 box. It doesn't matter how many of these you have in the box, you only get one Ethernet cable. I don't think that's really the end of the world, to be honest with you. This is a wireless system after all, and you only need to plug one of these nodes into your wired system, so the other one doesn't really have to be plugged in. I'm just choosing to plug it in. So there we have now some power bricks. And so this doesn't have the power built in, doesn't have the power adapter built in, and it's just a standard. It's not USB-C or anything, it's just one of these little round connectors that you see around quite a lot. So there's one each for those. I don't know why there's 3 boxes here. So there we are, there's another power adapter for that one. And what's in the third box? Oh, nothing. That isn't actually a box at all. So if you have a pack of 3, that's where the third one would be, presumably. There's also a tiny little CD with the documentation and a little myopia point thing in multiple languages, which we won't be looking at. So there we are. That's the unboxing. There's not really much to it there. There's the quick start guide. Now this is handled by an app, so you follow the instructions carefully in here, and you configure it by following an app. I'm not going to make you sit through all of that, but I will give some thoughts on it all when I've got these plugged in. So catch you for that in just a moment. So here is the Linksys Velop dual band version next to an Apple AirPort to give you a little bit of an idea of the size difference between the two. So the tri-band one is a lot taller, but this dual band one, as you can see, is quite a bit smaller than the AirPort. So if you have something like this, have an AirPort or time capsule or something, you'll get an idea for the size difference. So that was quite easy. I've set up the first node. There it is there. It starts off, it gives you lights on the top there to give you an indication of the setup process. It's purple when it's initially setting up, and then it goes blue when it's completed its setup. And you use to do it an app that you download from the App Store or from Google Play, and it will guide you through the process. So I've set up my first node. There it is in my office, and it's now asking me, do I want to set up, if I can focus in on it, there we go. Do I want to set up another node? And I've got my second node in here, ready to set up. So what I'm going to do is to turn the light on there. Turn the router on. Let's actually turn it on at the bottom, that'll help. There we go. And it's got a blue light because I've already plugged my Ethernet cable in the back. So my Ethernet cable is in the back there. Don't forget, you don't have to have an Ethernet cable in for your mesh network, but if you don't have an Ethernet network cable plugged in, then it will need to be within range of the other node. That's the key thing. And it's got a little diagram on the app telling me how to place the node and where to put it. Because I've got the node plugged in, I'm just going to go through the setup process. So I'll be back in a moment after it's configured. Right, I was having a few problems setting up my second node, and I've worked out, I think, what the problem is. Oh no, it says, oh no, we're having trouble talking to your node. Go to your new Wi-Fi. What I did was this first node, they're called the parent node here. What I had done is I plugged, this is my modem router from my ISP, and I plugged each of these into my switch, which is a mistake. What I needed to do was to plug that going through to that, and then the parent node into the switch, because that effectively is then only working as a modem. So there we go, that was the reason, that was the problem, and now these two nodes are working together. I have flawless Wi-Fi throughout the whole house. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to do a speed test of this node and the other node. So what I'm going to do now is I have the Linksys app here, and there's a speed test. So I'm going to go into the speed check there, and this is now going to check my speed, and because I'm near this node at the moment, it will be checking that one. It's got a fairly decent ping. So it's completed, and a 71 megabit down, 18 megabit up, which is equivalent to what I get on my desktop.
computer, and it's certainly the fastest Wi-Fi speeds that I've ever had, so that's great. That's the second node. The other thing that I'm going to do here actually is I'm going to show you how it's switching between nodes. So if you look right up at the very top on the status bar, you can see I've got full Wi-Fi signal up there at the moment. Full signal there, and I must have swapped between the two. Certainly on my previous setup, the signal would be dropping down. Just walking a short distance actually, just going between walls. And there we are, so it's dropped down. You can just see that there. So I'm obviously talking to the parent node, and it's dropped down. And there you are. You must have just seen that. It has already connected clearly to my second node, which is just there. And it was seamless. And to try it, I actually did stream a bit of video, and I walked around, and there was no stuttering, no buffering. It just happily changed between those two nodes without really batting an eyelid. Now, if I was running this purely on Wi-Fi, I would need to have a third node, because I would have to have one probably in another room, the room directly next to this one in there, for all the nodes to talk to each other. So this is one of the advantages of me stringing Ethernet throughout the house. I've been able to get away with two. Linksys say that there should be no more than 2 rooms between each node, but because that's a rough guess, because as we've already established, your mileage may vary. So there we go. That's my system setup. I'm really happy with that. It seems to be working absolutely brilliantly. I'm really pleased with that. Certainly much better than the previous setup of having one master Wi-Fi and then trying different sorts of extenders and all that kind of thing. It's much, much, much better using this. So, enough waffling from me. I hope you've enjoyed this networking video. As always, please do post your comments. I know you will. And I will respond to them. I respond to every comment, unless it's mean, in which case I'll delete it. So, thanks for watching the video. I will catch you in the next one.